Go ahead, David. You got it right. Yeah, take it off.
Lottery is 109 million. Okay, there we go. Blessings, please sit down. I'm back with my family. Yes. Wow, talk about being in hibernation for 9 months. The last time I flew was to Tanzania in March. And as my plane was coming into Israel, the country was beginning to shut down, and the world shut down right afterwards. I had an opportunity to speak at the United Methodist Church annual conference in Tanzania to deal with some issues with Israel. In February was my last time in the United States to follow up on a women's delegation of academics, Christian academics who teach Bible, theology, preaching, history, that came to Israel in December of last year. So all of a sudden, one day you were flying, and the next day you were home. Israel right now is coming out from its second severe countrywide shutdown. When Israel started, the airport actually opened up before the country. So last Saturday night, I flew out from Israel. It was a ghost town of Ben Gurion Airport, and then ended up in another ghost town called JFK Airport. Literally, all the duty-free shops were closed. There was a long line for Dunkin' Donuts because that was the only place you get a cup of coffee, and Hudson News. Then I flew to Washington State on Sunday morning, and that was the place I can go in without quarantine. So I just want to make this very clear. I did take a COVID-19 test before I left. It was negative. That's the reason why I can come. So there was a lot of rules and regulations to come in here, Pastor, so they're making sure everyone's okay. So I just want to let everyone know that I came in, and then for a week I was in Washington State staying at someone's house. So thank God everything's okay. All right? All right. I just want to make sure with David, we're good with the PowerPoint? Okay, excellent. We're going to talk about an invitation, your Sabbath invitation. I am right now, in the last few weeks, writing my first book. You didn't read it yet, so, you can't say it's great. We don't know. We'll find out. So I'm going to give you some nuggets from the upcoming book that will be ready hopefully in mid-December. You can pre-order the book right now by going to yoursabbathinvitation.com. And obviously, if you want to contact me, you can through that email. This has nothing to do with Or Torah Stone Center for Jewish Christian Understanding Cooperation. This is my own insights into Sabbath. I'm going to face a public relations nightmare because I'm going to say that Christians are invited in the Sabbath experience. I actually did a talk on this for my Jewish co-religious in Netanya during the Feast of Tabernacles, and as expecting to get feedback or pushback, it was understood that I would, because in our world, to celebrate the Sabbath would be considered a no-no. However, if we go to the first slide, I'm going to ask David, that is the Messianic prophecy. Isaiah 66, verse 23, makes it very clear. This is the second to the last verse of Isaiah. That everyone, all flesh, will be celebrating the new moon and the Sabbath. Isaiah envisioned a time when we're all going to celebrate the Sabbath. Now, I know for a fact that New Life Christian Center is not the mainstream and that you actually celebrate the Sabbath, right? This is why there's a lot of pressure on me today, because what am I going to bring in my A game? Every time I'm coming here, I have to bring my A game, A+ game, to talk about this prophecy. So I want you to consider Sabbath, first of all, as an invitation. It is easy for many of us to look at a prophecy like this and then to automatically put the responsibility of that generation that's going to experience the ultimate culmination of the Messianic age. It's easy for us to not do anything right now. For example, there are Jews who don't believe that the state of Israel is a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. They believe that somehow everything is going to be like instant coffee, like Quaker Oats, instant oatmeal. Somehow, when Messiah comes, everything will be done. I don't come from that camp. I come from the camp that believes that you take the Messianic age into your hands, and whatever will be left over, that's what God will take and fulfill and actualize. I want to make this very clear. I didn't move to Israel because I believe that somehow everything is going to happen at the end. I moved to Israel because I want to be part of the Messianic historical moments. I want my family to be a chapter heading in a reborn Israel. Therefore, if I take that in my hands, I am saying to God that I am not waiting any longer. I am not going to grow up in a Jewish ghetto somewhere outside of Israel. I'm going to go straight ahead and fulfill this prophecy for the first time in my family's line. That's why I moved to Israel 15 years ago with my family. No longer a footnote in the diaspora, but now a chapter heading. And on top of that, to fulfill something that's even greater than all that is the rapprochement, the reconciliation between Jews and Christians. To serve that in Israel is incredible because we can't be doing this alone. You are our partners in the covenantal experience and to fulfill prophecies like this. Now you can. For my hybrid students on Friday, yes, they're here? They all got a preview a little bit of what's coming. This is a review for them, so there'll be a test tomorrow morning, okay? But I'm going to add a little bit for the hybrid students. So just to let you know that they got a sneak preview. Sorry, but I'm their godfather, so therefore... Please consider Sabbath not, I want to repeat this, not a vacation day. Because the question you should be asking is, can I celebrate the Sabbath on a Wednesday? These are the questions we should be asking. What is so special about the Sabbath? And why is this going to be one of the prophecies to be fulfilled? I should say in fulfillment, because we're going to be doing it right now. And why is it so important? Let's go to the next slide, David. First, you already know some of this stuff. There's going to be a review because pastor and co-pastor have already talked about this to you in the past, but I want to make sure we have a little review so I can add something to it. Okay? So please don't sleep on me yet, all right? I'll try not to violate the 11th commandment, thou shalt not bore you, all right? In Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, and God said, let there be luminaries in the expanse of heavens to separate between the day and between the night, and they shall be for signs and for appointed seasons and for the days and years. In Hebrew, there is a word called mo'adim. There's also a Hebrew word called zmanim. There's also a Hebrew word called itim. They're all times. There are different Hebrew words for times. Moadim is his scheduled time. Okay, this is different than zmanim, which is times. I can make up a time for you to meet with me, and then different than itim. Each one has something in the Bible. But moadim, how I know this is about him, he's setting up time. Now, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole that I did about a month ago to think about time. Most people think about time as a ticking of the clock. Seconds go, day passes, so on and so forth. Some people think that time is a human construct. It is for us to deal with this experience that we have of seeing the sun rise, sunset, and so on and so forth. It's a human construct. The Bible is saying, no, it's not. It's a divine construct. Time is divine. This is very important. Obviously, we can go with Albert Einstein and quantum physics and talk about the relativity of time, but the Bible's not a science book. The Bible is about a relationship of God wanting a relationship with us to freely choose that relationship. So that's number one. Therefore, time becomes very important of an infinite God creating something that is totally finite for us. We're not infinite human beings. We're not above space and time. We live in a created universe in a divine time. And is already set up in the DNA of the world in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. So first, you have to understand that time is divine. That Moadim is a scheduled appointment on God's calendar. And for thousands of years, God has been waiting for you to schedule him into your calendar. Unfortunately, when the church was beginning to identify itself as a church, many of the church fathers, as a protest against Judaism, would go against the Sabbath as for the early Christians to celebrate. You can look this up on Google. You can find out from every single early church father. What you are not are Jews. And how can I identify that is you don't celebrate the Sabbath. I apologize that you've been robbed of this moadim, this moed, this divine schedule encounter. Okay? I'm not trying to play any scriptural ping pong with you. Shabbat is just as yours as it's mine. Okay? I want to make a disclaimer. I am not saying you need to do the Jewish interpretation or practice of Shabbat. I am not saying that you need to quit on Sunday worship. You are Christians. You identify yourselves as Christian. But Shabbat and a Sunday service are not the same. Right? Next slide, David. Leviticus chapter 23 specifically goes ahead and tells me that Shabbat is a moed. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 2, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, the Lord's appointed times, moadim, that you shall designate as holy occasions, these are my appointed holy days. Very clear that Shabbat is a moed. That means this, even though we are reading this in Leviticus, it doesn't mean that it wasn't understood before Leviticus. All right? First 2,000 years of human history is summarized in the first 11 chapters of Genesis. Genesis wasn't written by Moses. Moses inherited these stories to canonize in our Bible in Genesis. And then the history of the Jewish people through the prophets that came the revelation, then we began to write out scriptures that we have. Understand the history of it all. But before Leviticus chapter 23, this concept of moed didn't just come on the scene. It came on the scene way beforehand. It is now coined as a moed. The word Shabbat was coined as moed, not the seventh day. The seventh day was transformed into Shabbat. This is extremely important in understanding, because a day, when we're dealing with a human construct of a day, there's no difference between hours and minutes and days. The same 24 hours every single day. What makes one day different than another day? Nothing. Therefore, I can do Shabbat, if I think of it in a human construct, as a day of vacation. Why can't I do my vacation on a Wednesday? On a Monday? Okay? I'm going to keep repeating that question because it is the number one question I will get in the circles that I walk in. That's nice, you do Shabbat, but I'm not under the law, and there's grace, and therefore I don't have to commit myself to the Shabbat invitation. Okay? So therefore, Shabbat on the seventh day is going to be crucial because it is a moed. It's a scheduled appointment. God is the God at the beginning, is the God at the end. He does not change, nor did the mandate to celebrate the Shabbat change. This mandate was right at the beginning. The invitation is there. Holiness automatically happens on the Sabbath. Are you going to sanctify it or not? Next slide. So I want to make this very clear. When you deal with Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, you will never see the word in Hebrew, Shabbat. The first time Shabbat appears is before the Torah was given at Sinai. It happens at the manna episode. No food, no drink. We're in the desert. Moses, what are we going to do? Lo and behold, the manna is dropping. But Moses, in the middle of this chapter, makes it very clear in Exodus chapter 16, verse 23. So he said to them, this is what the Lord spoke. Tomorrow is the rest day, a holy Shabbat to the Lord. Really? Like, if I was the people, I was going to say, hey, what is Shabbat? If he's saying the word Shabbat, then the people would have to know that term in order for him to go further on what he's talking about. So Shabbat was before Sinai. This is the proof I'm showing you. This is not just a Jewish thing, which many people think it is. All right? So therefore, at this time, they were not the Jewish people just yet. They were still the house, Israel, in the sense that Jacob was called Israel. But if you know that the Jews were not the only ones in the desert, there was a mixed multitude in Exodus chapter 12 that went out with the Jewish people. Who were the mixed multitude? Well, it could be people who were slaves that were not Egyptian. There could be people who intermarried within the Jewish people. There are the others. But they saw what the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was doing and did, and made a decision to walk with the Jewish people. This is extremely important because what you had were two groups in the desert, the house of Jacob and the other. And when the house of Jacob and the other are together, this mandate that Sabbath is to the Lord is for everyone. The mixed multitude are not saying, hey, I'm not the house of Jacob. The mixed multitude are part of the nation. This is going to be very crucial because you will see in the Exodus chapter 16, Israel and then nation. I invite you to read a little bit more after the message. You will see there's terminology, the children of Israel, but there's things about the nation. So again, Shabbat pops up 4 times in Exodus chapter 16. You have in Exodus chapter 16, verses 25 to 26. And Moses said, eat today, for today is the Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find in the field, meaning you won't find the manna in the field. You won't need to gather the manna. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, on there it will be none. It's just a sort of an echo. On 6 days you shall work, but on the seventh day you shall rest. Or it's an echo that's going to happen eventually in the Sinaitic covenant. Next slide. Then, Exodus chapter 16, verse 29. See that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the sixth day he gives you the bread for 2 days. Let each man remain in his place. Let no man leave his place on the seventh day. So you see Shabbat there. So the people, not Israel, not the children of Israel, the the nation, rested on the seventh day. This is extremely important because the argument will always be, you're doing a Jewish thing. You're doing a God thing. And that's what it is. But we don't see the Shabbat term in Genesis. We see the Shabbat term coming in Exodus. This is the important thing. But it had to be understood that there was a Shabbat because Moses can't be speaking to a people if they don't know what it is. They were slaves. Time wasn't theirs. They were working on the Shabbat. They're in Egyptian society and not keeping it. So whatever they were inheriting from their forefathers of this concept of Shabbat, it was there, but they couldn't do anything because the Egyptian taskmaster is telling you to get up on Saturday morning instead of watching cartoons. I need you to do something else for me. That's what they were doing. Next slide. There's a very important Jewish interpretation principle. It's very important what's stated in the verse, but also what's not stated in the verse. What is hidden in plain sight can be more important than what's in front of your nose. This is a Jewish interpretation principle. What is missing? That's the best way I can coin it for you. What is missing? And if you look at the first chapter in Genesis, I point out the verses there, 5, 8, 13, 19, 23, and 31. There was evening and there was morning, and then you had the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day. But if you go to Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, what are you missing? And it was evening, and it was morning, and it was the seventh day. What is missing is more important than right in front of your nose. The question you should be asking is, why is the pattern missing? Thank you, Kurt. Because I was going like that too when I was dealing with this. It's missing because Shabbat is not like any other day. Now, I want to point something out to you. Everyone knows that in the beginning of the beginning, there was chaos, and there was darkness. There was nothing. The best way we can even think of this is a black hole of some kind, because science has given us this visual lately. What's the point of God doing these 6 days of work? We'll define what that is in a minute. Is to take chaos and make it into order. Every single day, God, in the beginning of it all, was making the world more distinctive than the day before. Taking the original chaos and making it into order. There was evening and there was morning, and we have another day of distinctiveness for the world. But we don't have anything on the seventh day. Because we know for a fact the heavens and the earth were completed and all their host. Elohim completed on the seventh day his work that he did. He abstained on the seventh day from all the work that he did. There was no more need to do anything distinct because everything is completed. Therefore, the Sabbath is not a day from where you make chaos into order. Why can't you do the Sabbath on a Wednesday? Because the Sabbath is complete. It has its own individual character. Has nothing to do with chaos into order. By us throwing the Sabbath on a Wednesday, is you're taking something that's complete and putting chaos into it. Sabbath is extremely important for this Friday evening to Saturday evening time period because everything else associated to the work week has nothing on the Sabbath. It's extremely distinct. And by throwing it into a work day, a weekday, you're causing chaos into a day that was completed and God rested on it. Not only that, he sanctified it and blessed it. So this day that has nothing to deal with any other day in the week that's sanctified and blessed, if we go ahead and license it to another day, you've taken something that's sanctified and blessed, and you put chaos into it. Sabbath was meant for its own day, not for any other day. Again, I want to make this very clear for those who are watching online who don't know who I am. Again, I'm not taking away from anything on the worship and the schedule for the church. I want to make this very clear. I want you to be good Christians. I want you to be good Christians. What I am saying is to consider the Sabbath invitation as something free from any other day in the week.
To listen to this message in its entirety, visit us at our website to hear this and many more messages from Dr. LaSalle and Portia Vaughn. At ChristianCenter.com, you can get valuable resources for your Christian walk and discover more about New Life Christian Center. At New Life Christian Center, there's a place for you. Join us for one of our live streaming broadcasts or visit us at one of our weekly services at 6610 Highway 90 West, San Antonio, Texas, 78227.